Hello, good evening, and welcome to a very, very special Saturday night edition of the Tea Room. Please let me welcome our two special guests first, which is Ricky and Dave from Scottish Watches. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello there.
Hello.
So, for those you don't know Scottish Watches, they are one of the biggest watch, probably the second biggest watch podcast in the world. They've got way over 100.
Right?
Yeah, way over 350 episodes. So please all go and subscribe to them at the end of this. And so you've got a few podcasts to watch, so you need to crack on. It might take you a bit of time. So the rest of the panel, we have Night Wristwatchman. Hello, Palm.
Hello, Tickers. Hello, all. How you doing, guys?
And we've got Sam from Casual Watch Review.
Good
Hello.
evening.
Welcome to everybody in the chat as well. Okay, so I'd like to start, please, and ask Ricky and Dave about your watch journeys, how you got into wristwatches, and how you made Scottish Watches one of the biggest podcasts in the world.
Dave, you go first, because I want to go to the toilet.
First. How did we make it successful? By fluke, I think, is probably the honest answer. So how did I get into watches? I guess, as a kid, I was massively into Swatch watches. I used to go. I've got family in Switzerland, so I used to go to Switzerland quite often in the summers. And I was over there in the early 80s when Swatch watches launched, and my aunt bought me a Swatch watch because it was the saviour of the Swiss watch industry. Blah blah blah. Everyone knows that story. But I did genuinely get one back in '83, which I still have, and have collected Swatches ever since. Then, as you get older, you get more money, more ability to have money to spend, yada yada yada. And I got into other things, Omega mainly, to be honest. Initially, that had been my kind of first, I guess, whatever you want to call it, premium watch, luxury watch, whatever you want to describe it as. So it was a Seamaster, kind of Brosnan era Seamaster with a wavy dial. And then the bug bit hard, and I've staved off bankruptcy ever since, so it's been fine. Then I've kind of I didn't work in watches for the vast majority of my professional life, but I've always been into watches via things like Red Bar, so I kind of look after Red Bar for the UK and kind of other areas and help out there. And then I started going up kind of in Glasgow. That's my hometown. I was mostly in London working at that time, but then I came home to Glasgow occasionally at weekends and things like that. So I set one up in Glasgow, and the first or the second one that we did, myself and Ricky were kind of like eyeing each other up like feral cats in the night, going, I know that person, I know that person. We couldn't quite place where we knew each other from, and then it dawned on us that we knew each other from many years ago, more to do with cars. And then there was, kind of, I guess, an idea between Ricky and back then Rick to kind of do a podcast, and I kind of, I guess, helped out in certain ways with some introductions and such like. And then fast forward, 3 years and 3 and whatever years it is. How many years is it now, Ricky?
3.5.
3.5 now, is it? Yeah, there we go. So
Dave had trouble counting to 5 earlier on a podcast we were recording.
Dave was going 1950 to 1954. That's only
many
4
years
years.
Is that?
No, that is 5 years. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
yeah,
you'd think I was
like getting left in the show as well.
No, that is getting left in. So that was kind of it. And I guess through just hard work, I think the best way to describe the podcast is you can have the best song in the world, but if it's badly sung, no one will listen to it. But if it's a well sung bad song, folk will listen to it. And Ricky's very talented when it comes to editing the podcast, so we can literally talk nonsense for at least an hour, and he professionally edits it to make it sound good. And so basically, just don't ever kind of analyze any depth into it, because that's where we will fall off the end of a cliff.
Yeah. Pretty much what he said. To sort of go through one of the points, the part where he said we knew each other. I used to run a car magazine about 15-20 years ago, and Dave used to do rally driving, and somehow we connected, and I interviewed him, and I remember racing on a private road, his car and my car, private road, to see what one was quicker. And I think we got up to about 130 miles per hour on this private road, and it was almost a dead heat. So that's where we sort of waved goodbye to each other, and then
That was when the licenses
2018.
were revoked and we went to jail for the next
Yeah, we
20
went to
years.
jail,
and
we
then
got
had
out.
each other for a while.
Yeah.
Got out. We shared a cell. He was the giver, I was the taker, so yeah, usual story. And many years later, we met up again, and
Shared a
here we
shower.
are now. But podcast has been going, as I say, there for nearly 4 years. Started as a complete joke. It was me and another guy on Instagram taking the piss out of each other. His name was Rick, my name was Ricky, and I came up with the idea we should do a watch podcast. There already was one in Scotland, but it was just a whenever thing. It wasn't very regular. And I just came up with the idea we should do a podcast, maybe call it, I don't know, we're both called Ricky, why do we call it Wrist Action with a couple of dicks? That never stuck, so we went with Scottish Watches. And yeah, it's been good ever since. We've had lots of opportunities. Dave was, as I said, working in the background, a bit like Charlie at Charlie's Angels. You never really saw his face, but he was connecting some dots. We got some really good interviews. COVID came along, podcasts get really popular, and before we knew it, we were suddenly pretty much at the number 2 position behind Hodinkee when it comes to downloads, 1.2 million a year at the moment. So yeah,
Wow.
just enjoying it. And the main thing we do is we have fun with a hobby. It's not about how much it costs. It's not about how good it looks and showing off to people. It's all about, this is just fun. It's something we enjoy doing. And guys don't have many things they can spend their hard-earned cash on. We can't really collect shoes and handbags and things like that. We're kind of limited, and watches is something that appeals to many.
for yourself.
Well, Dave, I
can
wasn't
collect-
trying to out you. I know it's the weekend and it's Davina, but you know,
It's
I'm trying my
Friday.
best
Davina
here.
comes out on Friday at 6 o'clock.
Right, okay.
You could collect Porsches, Ricky. It'd be a bit expensive, wouldn't it?
Well, I usually hand one in and get the next one, so I don't collect them as such as
No.
trade them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, having fun with cars again as well recently, because it's been a while since I changed bikes and cars. But yeah,
We'll have
watches
a
and
chat-
cars seem to
we'll
go
have-
together as
Yeah,
well.
we'll have a chat in the after show. But I'm into cars as well. Excellent.
Good.
I'm rallying. Yeah, well, used to be.
We're being asked
Excellent.
about the wristwatch.
What have we got on the
checkout.
wrist, guys?
Oh, sorry. Yes,
Wristwatch
wristwatch
check,
check,
yeah.
guys. What we all wearing?
On you go, Dave.
I go first.
So-
I have on my, where we at? Camera. I've got my Snoopy on.
Oh, wow.
So, Speedy
Ooh,
Super
nice.
Snoopy Silver Award for the 50th anniversary.
Very
So-
nice.
And I've got
Very
it on
nice.
the newer kind of bracelet, which came on the new Speedy. So, yeah. So,
Yes.
favourite of mine. So, yeah, that's what I've got on tonight.
Well, so when you said you're an Amiga fan, you've obviously got a very good spend history with them to be able to get that at retail.
Snoopy, yeah.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Couldn't comment.
Um,
Couldn't
Wasn't
comment.
mistake.
I've saved up, man. I've been rubbing brass together, you know, like I've been saving up those brass. Yeah, like the next time your train's cancelled, it wasn't me that stole the overhead lines. It definitely wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't know what you're talking about. All you need is a long bit of copper. Chuck it off a bridge. Short circuits the system. Bob's your uncle. 2 miles of
Boom.
2 miles of copper
Done.
wire.
Done.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have
Ricky.
got the MBNF Max Booster and Friends Mad 1 Red Edition.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Is that on loan or is that yours?
No, that's mine. I was lucky
Wow,
enough to have
beautiful.
messaged Max when the blue one came out to say any chance, and he said no chance at all, but thanks for your interest. If anything
May I
happens in
put
the
your
future,
full
I'll let you
screen,
know.
please? May I put your full screen? Let's have a
Yeah.
good old close-up, please.
Oh wow!
Ooh, that is
And
So
the
amazing.
Mad
that's
one.
The Mad 1
That
Red.
that is a mad
Wow.
one, isn't it? That's beautiful.
And you tell the time by reading it from the bottom. So
Oh, wow.
the best for the lights hitting it and whatnot, but yeah. So that one there.
I'll just,
Limited edition.
I'll just put your phone up, put your mobile phone up and have a look at it. I'll tell you the time.
Well, yeah, but the good thing with this is when you're wearing it, it's a bit like a Vacheron, a driver's watch. You don't have to tilt your wrist because the time's at the bottom, so you just have to look down. So if you're in a meeting and people are getting really boring, like Dave, instead of kind of looking at your watch, you just glance down and go, right, it's time to go. So it works out well.
Okay, so yes, Chris Clue says, Ricky, you jammy gate.
Well, yes,
There
I'm
you go.
very fortunate because lots of people went for it.
He's misspelt baldy bastard. He's not spelled it right.
You're talking about your wife's punani again? Jesus Christ.
Okay. Okay, we're straight in here.
You should see
Okay.
the
Gloves are
outtakes.
off.
That's all I'm
Gloves are off.
saying.
Oh, dear.
This
Sam,
is mild compared to the recordings usually.
wait, Sam, what Christopher Ward are you wearing? Sorry, no. What are you wearing?
I haven't got my Christopher one, and I forgot. I've just been like doing around the house. So I've got a Seiko on my Seiko, the Seiko speed timer, the newish.
Ah, that's a cool piece, that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Nice one.
got it on the old Uncle
Nice.
Seiko razor wire there.
Oh yeah, I love those bracelets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
good.
sorry, I thought last minute I should have put with Christopher Ward. I'm still waiting on that Rolex, so I'm on no watch buying until the mint green dial date just turns up. Apparently, I'm top of the list. They said at the Rolex AD, but that's what I'd say if I kept pestering.
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
question-
Everybody's top of the list. Yeah.
The pertinent question is though, which list?
Well, yeah, probably on the just. I've only got one purchase history with them before, so I'm probably on the Z list.
It goes in the it goes in the better information needed.
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
Rolex is it you're waiting for, Sam?
The mint green, the new mint green dial date just 41, or
That's a nice
the
watch, that.
or the green motif dial. Apparently, somebody Rolex AD in the UK told me that Rolex are building another factory to build these, not just those dials, but their dials in general. So he was like, yeah, you're probably going to be waiting quite a few months for it, for that one. So
At least you've chosen something that's got some vague kind of reality of maybe seeing it the light of day in the next few months.
yeah, instead of the Sprite or the Riddler or whatever the left-hand drive.
Exactly. Impossible
So,
to get.
Palm, what you wearing today?
So I've got the Explorer 1 39mm on today.
Very nice. Very nice. I've got the CWC Special Boat Service as standard issues at the moment to the Special Boat Service with the proper Phoenix scruffy NATO
Or the old
strap as well.
Admiralty grey.
Yeah, the proper Phoenix one. The scruffy's anything but. Yeah, great watch. Absolutely. So I would like to ask you two guys, what did you think? What did you think of the London Watch Show? Because you were there on
Which
the
one?
first year. The first year you were there, weren't you? But then you never made it on the last year. So I kind of wondered.
Thought the first one was good, generally.
You thought the first one was good, yeah.
It was.
I kind
good
of
to turn
wondered
up.
with your absence on the second one. I didn't know whether something.
No, that was. There was a lot of different things happening. I think I was at Bremont the week before, so making 2 trips down to London was just going to be a pain in the arse, and there was stuff happening afterwards, and it sounded a little bit samey. And instead of being an annual show, it was 6 months after the first one with the same people. And then I heard afterwards that it was the same people in the same location with the same watches showing off the same stuff. So it wouldn't have been much point. But the first one, it was literally as we came out of whatever lockdown 14 and were able to travel and jump on planes, come down. I heard it was a super spreader event, but I just had COVID the month before. So I was in God mode. Nothing was touching me.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. Got to meet a whole load of people, listeners to the show, YouTube celebrity folks. Met Paul Thorpe for the first time. He didn't kill me, which was nice. I was a bit worried about that. Met Spencer
Really?
BQ. Yeah, no, I survived. I can run fast.
Well, did you have a bit of history? Did you have a bit like? How come you
Kind
thought
of
Paul might?
Kind of a. We had a little bit of an argy-bargy over the past couple of years, and we sorted it out. It all came to a head when he made a video about us basically calling us out for bad things that we never did, and we pulled him up for it. And then it started a dialogue where he eventually, 6 months later, ended up in our show in a no-holds-barred tell-all about everything that everybody had been asking him that he hadn't spoken about, such as the robberies, what he'd done, the offensive weapon charges, his son. Everything came out, and he didn't hold back on anything, so you can't ask for more than that. And ever since then, it's cleared the air, and we've got on great, and we work back and forward and things.
I get on well with Paul. I like Paul.
No, he's great at what he does, and his content's good. There's a good message behind it, and what he puts out there into the open. He fights the good fight for the people, which you can't ask more than that. Some of the other YouTubers, perhaps not so much, his recent history and stories have told. We talked about that a little bit before we hit record. It's a minefield. That's why we generally don't do a lot of YouTube stuff. You guys are one of the only ones that we've said we would do this kind of thing with.
That's why I'm so chuffed you two guys have come on, because I know when I've heard you talk about this, you just don't do YouTube at all.
No, it's storms and teacups.
I appreciate so much you two guys coming on. And you said you met Spencer as well, didn't you? Yeah.
Met him briefly. Met Watch Eric, Nico briefly, and some of the other guys that were across the first time from the States. The second one we didn't go to, and then obviously we heard the kerfuffles with Jonathan Edinburgh Watch Company and £500,000 worth of watches going walkie that nobody was really up for throwing their hands in the air and saying that was our fault. There was a lot of pointing fingers and elbows and whatnot, nothing getting resolved, and then folks seemed to be washing their hands of it and didn't seem right, left a bad taste in the mouth, and that's still an unresolved topic that Jonathan doesn't really want to go into, so we won't. But then a lot of people said that they were going to not be as interested in supporting that event going forward due to the way things were handled. So yeah, we won't be back.
There was another one at the end of the year, actually.
It's another one. It's a different. It's the same organizer, but it's a different location. Is that still not of any interest to you at all? Even if it's
same organizer.
No. I think it seems to be the same organizer because it's the same logo. I presume he owns the rights to the London Watch Show, so I think it probably is the same. It probably is Charlie Groom, I'd imagine.
I think for me, the first one, if I'm brutally honest, I think the first one was better. Probably most people's, including my mind, because it was pretty much the first time we all got to be in the same room and talk.
It was a meal to a starving man.
Exactly,
a novelty sort of thing. The first one, it was a bit novelty.
When you're hungry, you'll eat anything, and it was kind of like that.
I wouldn't eat you.
Post,
again,
give it a couple of hours, and I've drunk this wine, and you'll change your tune. But it's
pineapple.
Pineapples. I think it's really. It was good because you got to see a lot of people, and it was quite social as an event as well, because a lot of people went along just because they thought, first time out again after kind of COVID lockdown, yada yada yada, and it was good to see folk and things. I think the show is a bit of a misnomer. It's not really a show; it's more a fair. And I've kind of had this conversation before. For me, a show is you go and you look at things. It's more like a trade show. It's more like a kind of you go, you look at booths, you look at brands. That was very much. It was a room predominantly filled full of, aftermarket resellers, whatever you want to call them, and they were there to sell. So it was more like a kind of fair to me that you went and bought at. Second year, as I say, we couldn't go because Ricky was tied up with some other stuff, and I think I was in Miami, and Miami, London Watch Show. Let's see how that's going to work out. So I was over there, and then obviously, sadly, a few not so great things seem to have happened with, he doesn't want to talk about it. We're not going to kind of break that either. No, but
of course,
certain things happen to people that, are good people with their heart in the right place. And, yes, they're in that same sphere, I guess, in terms of pre-owned, but do it in a very different way to many of them. And, it was a pretty bitter pill to swallow for him and for others as well, but mostly for him. So I think it's going to struggle, that show now, frankly. It's not my vibe. It's not my thing. I think there's a couple of other shows floating about London now, which are got a lot more potential as far as I'm concerned. The first one last year was, a good little show, and I think there's some real potential for it to take off as well. So, let's see what happens with that one.
Are you guys planning to go into any? Sorry, are you planning to go on any of these London shows that are upcoming? I'll
definitely go down to the Watch Pro
Salon.
There's the Watch Pro Salon, which I think is towards the back end of the year. That's the one in the Londoner, which is that's a true show in that it's brands that are there that underpin it, and you go and you get to look at stuff you can see in stores, stuff that you haven't seen before, and the last year they had everyone from they had kind of Grand Seiko underpinning it, who brought along a whole load of their high artistry pieces, which was nice to see. You had brands that, like Christopher Ward there. Nice to see those guys out and about. But you had Laurent Ferrier there, where they make 200 watches a year, so you're not going to see them regularly anyway. You had Doxa, you had Oris, you had lots of stuff like that there. So, that to me, that was a great show. A lot of kind of little talks and speeches and stuff. So that was a decent show. And I think they've just had their, I can't remember what they call it, but they had the more kind of micro brand, small brand show, the market one, which is very much like kind of what's it called in the States? Worn and Wound, or whatever the hell they call it.
Similar to the wind-up show.
Wind up watch affair, whatever they call it. Yeah, kind of that similar vibe. They had that, I think it was at Truman Brewery they had that at.
I think Tickers went to that.
Yeah, the little one. Yeah, it was very small, but it was good. We saw a few quite a lot of micro brands and everything. Reached out to a few of them. Yeah. It was good.
Watch Pro is good.
There's another one at Terminal 5 in Heathrow in September. Somebody sent me details of that yesterday. Don't know the name of it.
Sofitel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've heard about that as well. Yeah, absolutely.
There's good
Yeah, we'll
variation
be
of
going to
stuff
watch
you can
Pro.
go to.
Yeah, I'll be definitely going to watch Pro. Well, I was going to ask you guys, going back to your podcast, you seem to get some cracking people on as guests, don't you? You know, all the real high ends. I mean, is it a
We're good at
hard
blackmail.
process to go through to get them? I mean, you know, you just seem to.
Yeah.
So what
No,
was that, Ricky?
we hack their iCloud accounts and then we blackmail them and we say we're going to release their selfies.
You want to see these pictures? The pictures of
Yeah,
Coulthard
they're
we've got are
horrendous.
unbelievable. If they ever see the light of day, I mean, it's going to make Michael Jackson look like a kids' party.
No, Archie Luxury in a dress. Not a nice sight.
Oh dear.
No, we just when we first started out, we were cheeky. We'd nothing to lose. We didn't care. We didn't have any airs and graces, and we've continued that. We just do it for fun. And if someone says yes or they say no, it doesn't bother us. And we've had people say no, but also the fact that we don't care. We're not affiliated with any big brands, conglomerates like Swatch, Richemont, LVMH. We get all the guys, and because we're Scottish, we were seen as, who cares? It's just a couple of Scottish guys having fun, and that seems to have won. It's like the turtle and the hare. We managed to kind of catch up really quick because it's just so Scottish guys, you know, they're just for fun, and then suddenly we're, as we say, sort of number 2 position in the world. And
Wow.
last week we had Julian, the CEO of Zenith. We've had the guys from Zodiac, Norcane, CEO of Maurice Lacroix. We've had Jean-Claude Biver on. We've had Gerald Genta's wife and daughter on for 2 shows. And we just pick people that we want to hear from. We don't pick people that perhaps are, you know, at the moment in time where we're speaking to them, they're hot, but they're not going to be hot in a week or a month. We want people that's got longevity, because our listeners go back. A new listener today listens to the most recent episode and then starts to work their way back the way through the catalogue. And we want something there that's sort of evergreen instead of a flash in the pan. And that seems to work quite well for us.
So someone on the second show is still current now, as on the 350 odd show. Right, got you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I guess as well, the other thing is, you know, the old maxim is true. If you don't ask, you don't get. And, you know, there's a lot of people are afraid to reach out sometimes to whether it's the brand or the individual and just actually ask the question, you know, hey.
Yeah, we're all human at the end of the day.
100%. And, you know, there's the watch industry's, you know, there's a lot of kind of perception of unobtainable in there as well, because, you know, you are sometimes looking at brands that sell watches at absolutely, you know, ludicrously sky high prices, you know, into the 6 figures and more. And ultimately what happens is people think, well, the people associated that must be as unobtainable as well, when in actual fact, it's like most businesses. Most of the people in most businesses can't afford what they make. You know, it doesn't make them any less human or any different. And, you know, the vast majority, you know, I think, you know, David Coulthard was one where we just, you know, I was speaking with some folk at IWC, and I just kind of said, hey, any chance? And they went, yeah, we'll ask them. And a couple of weeks went by, nothing. Then probably a month or 2 went by, and then I get an email saying, yeah, his PR folks said he would be up for it. We were like, okay, cool, yeah. And then, you know, they said, okay, yeah, don't release the nudes, hold back on the nudes. And we literally we arranged it for later in the year, and that was it. And it was super cool, super laid back when we recorded it, and it just went really well. You know, and the vast majority of them, you know, I'm lucky. I know quite a few people through, you know, Red Bar and various other things we've done, but again, some of them I don't know either. I just asked the question, or Ricky asked the questions, and happy days.
Can I ask you guys just to plug yourselves at the time being? While Chris is asking where they can find, has got someone else who isn't aware of you. So I'll switch Ricky.
I'll switch Ricky on to do this bit. There we go. Click.
Okay, right, I'll do the promo stint here. Get it on any podcast player platforms. That could be Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. But if you go to scottishwatches.co.uk, generally in the front page you'll find the latest edition of the show, interspersed with articles and news and previews and things. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud is probably your best bet. Just search Scottish Watches and it will pop up. Subscriptions are free.
And they're on Facebook and Instagram as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
Guys?
You can't listen to podcast on there, but you can check out at Scottish Watches on Instagram.
Yeah.
And just as Dave says, with different guests and stuff, it's just a case of asking. I would say it's a lot harder nowadays because there's so many different watch podcasts and watch YouTube channels to stand out and to have somebody higher up pay attention and say, right, okay, this is going to cost me 2 or 3 hours of time to set up email, get recorded, all the rest of it. It's trickier, but back nearly 4 years ago, there was only a handful of podcasts. There was Hodinky, The Grey NATO, Two Watch Snobs, and ourselves, and a couple others perhaps, so it was easier. And one of the things that always won for us was people seemed to like Scottish folks. We're the underdog. It's like Braveheart, perhaps not Train Spotting as much. And the Americans love the whole Scottish thing. They love the Scottish accent. They've all got an ancestor, a granny, a grandfather that lived in a castle in the Highlands. Sure you did. But anyway, if you believe that, you listen to the podcast and we win that way. So we kind of swooped in through the back door. Early on, we get some really good coverage with a feature in the New York Times, which propelled us massively. We did a mini-series with Ariel Adams at A Blog to Watch. Subsequent to that, we've done things with GQ magazine, appeared in lots of different publications, Oracle Time. Even Hodinky has sort of mentioned us, talked about us and things, and it's all helped progress things forward. And we just remain true to our roots. We just love what we do. It doesn't matter if it's a watch at 200 quid, which I was talking about in our show last week, or, as we mentioned on the show we recorded today, Zenith and Carry Vote Lightning watch that's 132,900 Swiss francs. So,
well remembered. Amazing you can't remember that when we're actually recording the podcast.
Neither can you. Shall we go through all
how
the
many listeners
today?
roughly per show? How many listeners per show did you get? Rough on average.
Well, the latest count we had, that's the other thing we don't do. We don't chase statistics. There's a lot of people that will put Rolex in the title of their YouTube videos. Have a think about that one, guys. And there's a lot of people with their podcasts that will do similar things for clickbait, or perhaps it's in there and they highlight, and it's always about Patek. It's always about Rolex Daytona, because that's what gets people interested. But it's an echo chamber and it just revolves around a circle. With our shows, we don't do that. So we only look at statistics yearly. And the last time we checked, which was in January, the previous year, it was 1.2 million downloads across the year for the shows, which is dramatically up on the previous year. And if I was to look again, I'm pretty sure it'd be up again. So yeah, we don't look at stats. We just carry on as we're doing, and we pick things that we like because that's the stuff we want to do. It's the people we want to interview and the things we want to talk about. Would you have Archie on? He's incredibly knowledgeable and would be a great guest, in my humble opinion, from Rolly Mania. Yeah, he's in episode 50.
Oh, wow. I've been there, done that already, yeah.
Oh, you've actually had Archie on. Wow, I didn't expect.
We got Archie super early. And he did not swear once.
No, not once.
How many times did he
on
swear?
the money.
Oh,
I must admit,
not once, 850 times.
Not once, yeah.
I've met him, and he's different when you're in front of him than he is on his show. 100%. Would you agree?
Actor.
Would you agree, Palm? He's different.
Yeah, he was really good. He didn't have any. He didn't throw anyone under the bus. He came on. He did the show. And he didn't swear. He was very eloquent. He explained how he got into things, his own collecting history, how he got into YouTube and how it's changed over the years. Didn't attack people that have wronged him, including the 3-letter guy or the other guy. So he was really good on his best behavior. Not this one. So no, Archie was good. He was a good guest. We should probably get him back on again.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And can I ask you?
Sorry, John. I was just going to say, just to plug that. You mentioned the Paul Thorpe episode. That Paul Thorpe episode is awesome. If anyone's watching's a fan of Paul Thorpe or just want to know his background, he covered more in that episode with you than he did on any of his videos, because I watched most of his videos. It was a great episode. That.
No, I'll look for that.
I saw that one as well. Very good. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. I'd just like to know, how long does it roughly take you to do a single podcast? I know, like doing watch videos, filming is Sam will tell you, pain in the arse, 8 hours to do an 8-minute video. It's complete. It's mind numbing. How long does it take to do a podcast?
Well, before we jump to that, another episode I'd recommend people go and check out if they can remember back this far. The Horology House scandal from a couple of years ago. That would have been January 2020 that came out, or February, just at the start. And that was when it came about that Chris Esri, I think his name was, had been ripping people off. And it was fake watches, and he was pretending his house had been burned down, or his parents' house had been burnt down. He was using Google Images. That was another standout episode if people want to go back and listen to something that was really good.
Excellent.
When it comes to the shows themselves, there's a lot of prep work. The longer we move into things and the higher up the food chain we are with different brands and CEOs, getting our ducks in a row, making sure that the CEO is available when I'm available, when Dave's available. There's time zone differences across the world. That's tricky. For instance, Stéphane, who's the CEO of Maurice Lacroix, we've been organising that for a year. Last year for our 300th edition with Alexia and Evelyn Genta, that took from January to September to organise. There are people we're still speaking to that we've been speaking to for nearly 2 years, including Hollywood actors who are into watches. But when it comes to recording, we generally record, it's a 60-minute show. It comes out around about 59 minutes, 55 to 59 in total, edited. We record for about an hour and 15, and then we cut out the mistakes. And if Dave's on the show, there's a lot of them to cut out. And then what we do is we do all the edit work. And unlike other shows, and this is a little bit behind the scenes, if you hear us interview, for instance, Julian from Zenith, and then you listen to him on the Caliber podcast or somewhere else, you might hear our show and think, that seemed different, that seemed slightly better. And the reason is, in between every word, this takes forever, in between every word that a guest speaks, every sentence, if there's a gap, an an I go in there and I chop it and I move the words together and I cut out all the little repeats and the stammers and the stutters. Most of them, some of them I leave in because there's too many, but most of them I cut out, which makes it a better listening experience. But then I shoot myself in the foot because it takes 8 to 10 hours to edit every show.
I've done that before.
Sorry, yeah.
8 to 10 hours.
So 2 shows a week with all the setup, all the emails, all the phone calls, all the Zoom meetings, all the setup, the editing, the graphics, the production. It's a full-time job.
Wow.
John, I posted the link in the chat to that episode. Just to say what
cool.
Rolly Main is asking there.
Oh, right. I don't know if
was pulled.
I don't think it's clickable because you're not going to will it? I think
if you just Google Scottish Watches Paul Thorpe podcast,
yeah,
come up.
I think episode
334, I think, was the last time he was on, which was relatively recently. But yeah, he's been on twice.
That was a catch up. The first one was better. That was the real nitty gritty. That was Frost Nixon.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was 253 is the episode.
Right,
Excellent.
gotcha. Excellent.
Memorized.
So, have any of the panel? Well, Palm, have you got any questions for the gentleman?
I do have a couple. As a big fan, but I'll save it to. I'll keep them short. So, I did listen to. You did a show with the microphone guy. I can't remember his name now. Just recently.
Podcastage, Bandrew.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, and also on Tuesday you mentioned how you like to stick to podcasting, not YouTube and videos and stuff. What would I mean? And you explained how much time goes in and how much equipment you really need to have a successful podcast, but you don't have to get everything straight away. What would you say to budding podcasters who just want to start something now on a watch podcast? Do you think there's room in the market for that, or do you think that's gone?
Totally. Go into it with no ideas of where you want to take it. Do it for the love. Don't hunt listens or on YouTube views. Don't go after that. And do it because you've got a passion. Pretend like no one's listening, but pretend that your mum's listening. So do your best, but don't care, right? Just have fun with it. That's what I did for the first probably 3 months, 2-3 months. Nobody was listening. We didn't care. We didn't look. Never look at your statistics. There's a thing called Podfade where people start a podcast and they put so much energy. They buy all the equipment. They spend 10 grand on microphones, recorders, processors. They record it. They put it out there. 10 people listen. They force their family to listen. Then the next episode they put out hasn't got as much time in it because it takes a while. And by the episode 5, they haven't got 100 subscribers yet, and they just throw in the towel, and all the stuff ends up in eBay. So do it with heart. Do it for the love of the passion of the hobby. Don't do it to chase views, listens, or money, and then see what happens. It's very difficult to make some. What does it say? It's hard to create a viral hit. It's got to happen naturally and organically.
Yeah. I suppose that's where since I've separated from the big boys, I haven't had as many subscribers, but I'm just letting it grow organically. I want my subscribers to be my subscribers, not bouncing off other people's. Yeah. So that's the way it goes. So, and we just have fun doing it, us guys.
Mm-hmm. And the way we do the show is we have bullet points for rough things that we want to talk about. For instance, today there was maybe 4 releases, and we'd been up to a lot during the week. We went to see the new Top Gun film with one of the retailers here in the UK, Chisholm Hunter and IWC. They invited us along. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about meeting DJ Cal Cox, who was up in Glasgow at a Rocks event. He's a Zenith brand ambassador. That was 2 things in the space of 2 days after COVID obliterating the entire industry here in the UK for 2 years. There was no events to go to. So we get to talk about stuff like that. interspersed with different things, and we try and segue. So, for instance, last week, Zenith episode. This week, met Cal Cox at a Zenith event, and then there was a new Zenith and Carrie Votolainen watch that we managed to connect the 3 dots together. And we do that beforehand so that when the show runs, it's smooth and it segues between everything. People don't really realise that. That's kind of one of the behind-the-scenes things that we do just to make it an effortless listen. So,
I wish the tea room was that organised.
well,
It can be. One day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah.
I do have one more question for you guys, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, in terms of keeping your show fresh and keeping it interesting, what feedback mechanisms do you get? Because you don't use, like on YouTube, you get comments on shows and stuff and that, but because you're podcasting, do you get comments there? Is that where you take your feedback from and try and improve, or keep doing what you're doing well? Or...
No, we don't care.
You just carry on doing what you're
we just do what we want. We hardly get feedback from anybody, which is a good and a bad thing. But if we were to take the feedback from people, to quote or misquote Henry Ford, if he asked the public what they wanted when he was creating his cars, they would have asked for a faster horse. Right? So the way we do it is we just do what we like. And if it's something that appeals to us, it's interesting to us, we'll talk about it in the show. And sometimes listeners get in touch to say they really liked it. Very, very occasionally do we ever get any complaints. It's usually Americans that complain about words that we use that are fine in the UK that they don't like over in the States. But yeah.
Something about Jeremy Hunt. Not sure.
Is it something about seeing you next Tuesday or something?
No,
Is that
something like that. Or Thursday,
no.
maybe.
Wasn't that one actually?
That was another one, which is quite amusing. Yeah. But no, it's we listen to, if they give us ideas. For instance, somebody got in touch to talk about eDocs a couple of weeks ago, and Dave explained about the brand. There's been various other things where questions have been asked about certain topics, and we do a bit of research, or we're in a really good situation where we have contacts. I can literally phone up Roger Smith and say, what does this mean? Somebody's asked me a question, and then I can talk about it in the show. We can phone up Max Busser, ask him a question. Dave can phone up Waco. Dave can phone up the guy here, there, and everywhere. So we've got all these industry contacts that we get on with, where we can then facilitate with and then bring it to the listeners of the show. So it all works out good.
Yeah.
Wow,
don't follow the crowd. Make your own path.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys seem to sound like you just have fun. You really are just doing it for yourselves, talking about what you like, and there's a million people along for the ride.
They're saying they're naturally talented and they don't need any. They do everything perfectly, and everyone loves.
We're Scottish. It's
I mean, it comes to the territory. It's like
we invented the television, the telephone, and penicillin. So, what do you want?
Yeah.
By the way,
you entertained. You could talk to each other, and you didn't die of certain transmitted diseases.
Yeah.
By the way, are you tea drinkers, by the way, or coffee drinkers, you two?
Iron brew.
Bit of both. Iron brew. I mean, how quintessential. Jesus.
Okay. But if you have to choose between tea or coffee.
Oh, see, that's a tough one. That is.
Really?
I've never seen you drink tea, Dave. Coffee.
I drink a lot of coffee, but I also do enjoy tea. That's a good question. Actually, my favourite drink is actually a Yorkshire drink, which is Mason's Tea Edition Gin, which is a gin from Mason's in Harrogate, where they infuse the gin in Yorkshire tea bags afterwards. So it's a super dry gin. I
could be on board with that. I drink Yorkshire tea almost exclusively, so yeah, I could be on board with that.
If you enjoy that, the first time I was given it is, if I ever go anywhere, I've got a habit. I like gin and tonic, so I'll say, give me a gin and tonic. If you've got something local, give me it, but don't tell me what it is. I just want to kind of see if I can suss out what it is. And it was actually, I was in Yorkshire, and they said, "Oh, we've got a new one," so they gave me it. And that way, something's so familiar that you can't put your finger on it. And I'm sitting going, right, this isn't. It's not like a juniper, and it's not all the usual things you would find in gin. Could not put my finger on it. Eventually I had to ask, okay, what is it? And they said it's tea. And the minute she said that, I was like, Christ, that is exactly what it is. It was like the aftertaste of a really strong cup of tea. It's great. Buy it.
I've got a question. Dave, it changed the subject a little bit. I think, Dave, last time we were speaking, you were trying to get the Montblanc 1858 watch, the diver that's like took the watch world by storm after Watches and Wonders. Did you manage to get one in the end?
I did. That was one of the Montblanc got it right in that respect. They got it right in the watch. It's a really cool watch, but they got it right in as much as the watch was available quite literally as the watch was announced at Watches and Wonders. So it was announced at the show in Watches and Wonders. Pretty much simultaneously, it was available via Montblanc, kind of ADs, the boutique, and the online store, and it more or less sold out instantaneously. Not maybe in like seconds or minutes, but certainly within a couple of days, they were pretty much unobtainable. And I've got a couple of good friends that actually are at Montblanc, and I kind of said, I really like this watch actually. I think I'm going to get one. I like it that much that I'm going to buy one. And I kind of left it probably a day or two too long. They were all gone on the website. So very luckily, I didn't call a favour in terms of not paying for it or anything daft. I paid for it out of my own pocket, but I called a favour in it. Please find me one. And they did find me one, which was nice of them. And I love it. Such a cool watch.
Yeah, I'm like fascinated by it. The green dial and that blue dial, they look awesome. Every store that I've been in, they're completely sold out. So
yeah,
I want to see one
they're completely gone. The green's probably the most stunning from a point of view of first view of the three colours. The black's cool, but it's very kind of conservative with a small C in that sense. But the green one's the one that smacks you in the face straight away because it's a really bright, vibrant one. But so is the blue as well. Don't underrate the blue. A lot of folk kind of skip past the blue because there's a lot of blue watches out there. But I actually ended up going for the blue one rather than the green. I thought I was going to go for the green one, but I went for the blue for a few reasons. And yeah, it's a really cool piece. It is, I would say, a very, very solid alternative to a Tudor Black Bay.
Yeah.
And I would also say there are 3 episodes of the Scottish Watches podcast where we interview 3 key members of the Montblanc team leading up to their CEO.
Ooh.
Well worth a listen.
Mm-hmm. So we've got some questions for the guys. So, sorry, Rolly May, he's asking, any thoughts on where prices are going on the grey market?
Down.
Speculation recently.
We had Jonathan from Member Watch Company on to talk about that about a month ago because we'd seen the tipping point of the roller coaster, and it's not something we really look at because it's old watches for sale. It's pre-owned. You're going to make some cash on Rolex, RMs, things, APs, things like that, and it's gone up and it's kind of wavered a little bit. But looking at Chrono24 or watchcharts.com, it's not as bad as people are sort of making it. It's not like Bitcoin crash or NFT crash, which seems to be the talk of the town at the moment. But it's one of those things. We mainly concentrate on new releases, news, current affairs, things like that, instead of looking at the prices in the grey market. But all these dealers are just constantly push. So
I think, my take on it is that it's not going to crash. It's not going to fall through the floor or anything daft. Certainly not in the short term anyway. There's a lot of heat in the market in certain areas at the moment that's overheating, and that will get checked for sure. People are going to have a little bit less spending cash. People who've got money though have money, and the fact that electricity and gas is going up a bit is not going to affect somebody who's on a high dollar wage. That's not going to have really any real world impact on them. Sadly, the people that are affected by these issues that are in the news and are real world issues, being honest, are people who are not spending lots of money on watches, to be frankly honest, because they don't have the money to spend on watches, which is a sad truth. The people who have the money to spend on watches will still have the money to spend on watches, but most of it's driven by a combination of there's more people wanting certain pieces than there are pieces existing. And, for things like AP and certain brands, that's fundamentally true. More people want them than they make them. Rolex is just that weird little bubble of something that shouldn't be but is. A mass production company that make best part of 1 million watches a year shouldn't be hyped as much as they are, because frankly there's lots of them out there. It's a very contrived, controlled narrative in a market. It is what it is, but I think some of the heat will come out of it, but it's not going to suddenly fall through the floor. So if you want to get 30 grand for your coloured dialed OP, you should probably think about doing it now, because they're not going to be worth 30 grand for long, but they'll still be trading at a ludicrous percentage over what they sold for originally for quite a while to come, I would have thought.
Yeah, there's a question sitting there that's been sitting for a while. What is the next watch purchase?
Yes,
from
that's
Whole
what I was
Milk?
going to ask you. What's your next purchase is for yourself?
Well, I've said on our show many times we're in a very fortunate position where we get sent in watches to check out for a week up to a month at a time. So our itch is scratched on a weekly, if not daily basis. So buying our own watches isn't as big a deal as maybe it would have been at the start, or if we were addicted and didn't have the facilitation available to us free of charge. Dave's got a lot of new watches because he obviously has been a collector for a long, long time and has a wide berth of different things that he's into and he likes. Me, my latest one was obviously the red one, and I've not spotted anything else that I particularly want to get for myself. I'd asked for the watch he's wearing just now, the Snoopy, and he allegedly arranged this 2 years ago. Still haven't heard bugger all about it, so we're going to have a little chat about that later on. But no, there's nothing else that I've seen that we can't get our hands on to check out. Another sort of link I do is I say it's like being not a watch journalist, a car journalist, where on your driveway every week you've got a new car, supercar, hypercar to check out, and when you've got that available to you, you don't really think too much into the future about what watch do I want to buy next, because the freebie you get for a week is probably going to outshine it anyway.
Okay, so there's nothing missing from that watch box of yours that you've always wanted?
Not that I can think of, no.
Wow. Have you got any
Nirvana there? Yeah, watch Nirvana there.
Have you got a certain genre, you guys? I mean, I kind of like the military stuff like that, and I collect sort of like, not expensive, but sort of like issued military watches if you can get hold of them. Have you guys got any kind of shtick? Anything you sort of tend to go towards?
Certainly, I like Speedmasters. I collect Speedmasters. I've got an irrational collection of Speedmasters. There's no two ways about it.
Great collection. Jesus.
Am I getting anything? What have I? There's a couple of things that I quite like. I actually really like the Holstein edition that Oris just launched the other day. The little 36mm, the kind of world timery GMT type thing they've launched. I think that's quite a funky looking watch. There's a possibility I might pick one of them up. There's nothing massively on my radar. There's a couple of independent pieces that I want, but that's a long play game for some of those ones. I think long term, Gerbil Forze World Timer. That's the long term goal.
Wow.
Okay, we're
So Ricky,
playing that game, are we then? Right. Okay, Roger.
Ricky, have you got any kind of shtick? Ricky, have you got any kind of shtick you go for? Any kind of particular type of watches that you? I mean, like you've got that thing on your wrist, which is like mad complications. Would you have a few of them, or have you got
your tourbillon? You've got as well your Harage.
Yeah, different stuff away from the standard sub-homage or speedy clone. Nothing wrong with that, but it's I've seen it so many times that when Harage brought out their tourbillon last year, the way that was produced with I don't even know, it was a kind of grid arrangement with faceted edges that catches the light. It's got a hologram burned with a laser into the back of it. It's got all these different coloured rubies and stuff, and it's super precise. That sung to me. The red one, which obviously was after the first edition of this, which was blue and white, because blue's my colour. Just anything. The Apollo 8's the only Speedmaster I've got, and I bought that because it looks unlike any other Speedmaster. It's got the laser ablated moon surface on the front, the back. They don't use red or pink rubies, they use purple ones that look completely different. So anything that's a little bit different, left of centre, that stands out, because I'm not a showy off person, but if I'm buying something, I want it to catch my eye and to look at it and to be quite taken with it every single time. It's like if you buy a nice car, when you park it and you lock it, if you don't look over your shoulder at it, you bought the wrong car. It's that kind of thing there.
Yeah, correct. Or you go in the car park and you don't spot it instantly because it disappears amongst the rest of them. And again, you know, you want it to just be there, that one, don't you? Of course, yeah.
Exactly. So cars, bikes and watches, they have to stand out.
Yeah. So Massive Clock's asking, Dave, have you got the MoonSwatch box set yet?
I would like to plead the fifth on that one in regards to I have no idea what you're talking about. The MoonSwatches come in a box set. This is news to me. No idea what you're talking about. No.
Do you have a MoonSwatch?
Yes, I am. I'm lucky. I have plural. I have a few of them.
You have a few. Do you have a available? Do you have? I'll be honest with you. I'll ask on my show. I'm after one. I want one. One of my buyers has paid for one for me, and I wanted a yellow one. I can't.
The sun. You want the sun?
Yeah. is there any way you can somehow help? I've got the money. I have the money in the bank.
To be honest with you, the honest answer is, if anyone that does want one will get one, and you're not going to like my answer, but the honest answer is patience. Ultimately, they can make around 10,000 units a day. That's what they can make. And that's obviously split across. If you think about this, it's split across the whatever it is, 11 models, I think there is. So, you're less than 1,000 of each unit a day could be made globally. So, that doesn't go as far as you think it goes. And they've kind of limited the outlets globally that sell it. Like the UK, it's, I think, 2 or 3 in London and 1 in Edinburgh. So kind of minimal outlets in the UK. And aside from that, you've got nothing online at the moment. They deliberately pulled back from putting them online. They will go online. It's a bit of a sad situation in as much as the hype beast train got a hold of it, and it was, it's a bit like sneaker culture. Suddenly all the flippers and all the resellers have got it, and sadly, there's also quite a lot of slightly more nefarious organisations have got hold of it, i.e., organised crime. It's a very clean way to flush money through the system because county line drugs gangs, etc., have lots of cash that they need to get rid of, and you get a bunch of kids and give them a couple of £100 each and tell them to stand in a queue and buy one of these, and they can flush them through pretty quickly. And that, sadly, is kind of a lot of what's hooked onto this. And I feel the most people, I don't feel sorry, honestly, for people who haven't got one yet. I don't feel sorry for them. Who I feel sorry for is the staff in the shops, because they are absolutely battered. And I mean, I'm not talking just battered by people constantly saying, "Where's my watch? Where's my watch?" I'm talking about physical threats of harm and violence being dished out to these staff, folk hanging about the staff entrances to the stores and basically threatening the staff and saying, "You will get me these." Staff having machetes and knives pulled on them when they get told to get out the queue because they've butted into the ground. That's a shit fest, and that's not fun. And the best way is if you're in London, go into one of the stores. If you're genuinely into your watches or into your Swatch watches, go in, wear a Swatch watch, go in and just quietly talk to the staff and say, "Hey, I know you probably don't have any, but I'm into my watches, I'm into my Swatch watches, whatever. I really would like one. Maybe come back next week. When are you thinking?" And just engage with them, and you'll find that don't be pushy, don't try and leverage anything, and you'll find that you will get one very quickly.
Did you see the video?
Exactly the colour you want.
Don't you saw the video that I went on the morning to try and get one, and I was streaming, and I had somebody from the front of the queue come after me because I panned my camera forward and then pulled it back to me. And I'm walking down, and some guy came and he tried to remove my phone off me and could have filmed him.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, there's
unbelievable. I nearly died. It's like unbelievable. Luckily, I met a fan like 5 minutes before who was like 6'6", wide, tall and wide, who pushed the guy out of the way before he got to me. Unbelievable.
I think this could possibly be the worst marketing fail in the watch industry in as long as I can remember.
You say that, but I would argue otherwise. It's not a marketing fail. It's a marketing fail from the respect that there's some bad news, but and some stuff going on that's not cool. But sadly, any news is good news sometimes, or any publicity is good publicity. They're selling every single watch they make, and they're making a lot of them ultimately, and they're selling every one of them. So that commercially is not a fail by any stretch. And Omega are absolutely seeing an uplift. They are getting people in who are interested. They're getting more people sniffing around, the whatever you want to call it, the genuine Omega Speedmaster, and sniffing around that as well.
The adult one.
The adult, the grown up version.
My first Swatch.
My first Swatch, exactly. But,
May I just bring up this? Mr. GMT reckons you're all sexy there, you two guys. So Mr. GMT's over. He's over. I don't know, Mr. GMT is on the other side of the world in a little town in Australia, and he thinks you guys are sexy.
Darwin.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah, he's in Darwin. That's right. He's in Darwin.
He's in Darwin. Yeah.
He's in Darwin.
This is where I have to.
They've won that award.
Stop myself. I won that award. It's the Darwin Award. I really need to genuinely stop myself making any of those kind of archetypal jokes about this. So yeah, I'll behave myself.
He's a good bloke and he thinks you're sexy. So there you go.
Well, there we go. I'll take that compliment. It's the only time I'll
Thank you,
hold
Mr.
sexy
James
tonight.
B.
That's a guarantee.
That's Dave.
I
I suppose
suppose
people in the-
marketing, I think, like they're putting their staff in danger is why I think it was a marketing fail. I think anyone could have predicted it was going to do well. I mean, it was no surprise that it did well to me anyway. So it was like, what they could have refined the collection down. They could have increased the numbers that were available. Because the same thing happened with that. Because I'm a Swatch collector as well, like you, Dave, and the same thing happened with the Mirror Spot Mickey thing, the Damien Hirst Mickey. I mean, luckily that was all online, but that was an absolute mess. Like everybody, they didn't predict how many of those people would want, and then they set up that kind of website where you had to register, and it was like, and then the website failed and stuff like that. So that's where I mean it's a marketing fail in terms of they put their own staff in harm's way, I think. But
I mean, certainly, was it perfect? No. Was there things that should have been done better? For sure, But I think. You live and learn, don't you? The watch industry rarely sees that kind of true hype culture that you get in clothes or fashion and these kind of things. It doesn't actually happen that much, So they get caught out in this. Interestingly, though, you've got the last big collab they did, which should have gone super hype, which didn't, was Bape. And interestingly, they did a Bape release, and they were actually limited edition. And there was queues, 50, 70 folk, whatever, at each of the stores that had it to launch it. And I genuinely think, because the first narrative was 2 each, yada yada yada. I genuinely think they thought, well, if Bape got that, which was pretty cool, and we were happy with it, well, this one's a lot less street and hype than Bape is. It's Omega. Omega's not got the same street kind of cachet as brands like Bape. Therefore, they thought it was going to be similar to that, and it turned into what could be best described as a complete shitfest.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll ever sell them online? Because originally we thought they were going to go. You think they will because they've pulled it?
It's not a case of if. They absolutely will. I can guarantee you they will. I've had conversations with people, and it will happen. They just want the heat to come out of it, and the heat will come out of it. The next great thing will come along, and folk will grab that. And there's only so many people will pay ludicrously over the odds on the grey market for a plastic Swatch watch. That's a fact. It won't have the same staying power as other things, and they'll move on to the next thing, and then you'll see it suddenly pop up online.
Great. Okay, so
sorry guys, I've got one question.
Yes, go for it.
This is actually a WhatsApp message from a friend of mine who introduced me to your show over a year ago. His name's Sonny. I don't think you know him, but hello, Sonny. He asked what happened to Rick. He was your partner in crime back in the day.
Well, he has a real day job, and that was involved in transportation and logistics. And when Brexit reared its ugly head, suddenly the whole of the UK went into meltdown on the logistics and transportation, product supply chain issues, and he suddenly became massively busy towards the end of 2020. Like within the space of a week, the shit hit the fan big, and he says, I'll be back in a month, and get Dave involved, get Adrian involved, get Catelyn, all the people, friends of the show. Everybody jumped in, stepped up. A month came down the line, and he thought everything would be fixed, and it definitely was not fixed by January. Mix into that, obviously, still pandemics and stuff. The Brexit stuff rolled on, and it just became to a point where it was silly to try and tell everybody that he was coming back next month. He promises he'll be back, because we couldn't hold up to that. And eventually he decided that that was it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't put the time, the energy, the effort in to do the show. And I think it was about September afterwards. So it was a good 9 months after he first left, 9-10 months after he first left, that was the end. He'd come back sporadically. We did a face reveal because he was quite a private YouTube guy. He didn't want people to know his face, and then he came out and explained what was going on, and we thought that was it. Everything's going to be fine. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Things didn't get much better, and then eventually, he just said enough's enough, can't commit to doing the show, and he left. So that's when we decided just to push on and carry on with things as we had been doing since November 2020. And yeah, it's fine. Didn't fall out. Yeah. We bumped into him over at Watches and Wonders. We had a chat with him there. It was the first time we'd really seen him because he's, as I say, he's been busy with all the logistic stuff that he does day to day, and no bad blood. Nothing bad said with him, with us, with the other. Still got on fine.
Yeah, I work in that industry, and COVID sent it crazy here in the US. I'm sure it was the same in the UK.
Yeah.
Well, the Brexit thing was the big thing. It was you couldn't get a hold of things.
Yeah, his is Brexit, and he also deals with a lot of transportation between the mainland and Ireland as well. And so that was a nightmare because they had that special, all the rules and exemptions, and it's it's not. He it's his family business. It's a big business, and he's at the top of the tree, and it's a big family business. So frankly, the buck stops at the top, so to speak, and he had to basically take that bull by the horns and make it work. And I think it's still an ongoing kind of challenge. So he rightly put his work and his family first, which is what it should
obviously
be.
That should be that way. Thanks for answering that, guys.
Jason Hooper's asking most underrated brand and your opinions, guys.
Oh, Jason, I recognise that name. Hello there.
Yeah.
Most underrated brand. Well, I'd have said up until recently, of the brands that I've had experience with, it would have been a Raj, and they came from nowhere. A couple of years ago, though, they've been going for well over a decade. They came to our attention when they sent some watches across for us to look at, and the first one that I got my hands on, absolutely hated, slated, and gave them a really hard time. And they stood up and they sent us more watches to say, well, you didn't like that one, Ricky, how about these ones? And the ones that they sent subsequently, I loved. We built up a bit of a relationship with them. Obviously, they provide the technology for Bremont's new in-house produced movement. I think that's the right words, the tungsten one. They sold the IP to them or licensed it out to them. They're doing great things behind the scenes. They're doing with big brands behind the scenes that we're not allowed to talk about. They're not allowed to talk about. And then they popped out their own tourbillon last year after being shafted by Le Joubert, who were going to be supplying a movement. They decided, no, we're not going to give you this anymore. And the guys at Raj and THE Plus, which is their engineering firm that's been melded into the full company, within the space of 1 year, they designed from the ground up their own tourbillon movement, based on their K1, their K2 technology. So they're probably the most underrated, and they still are underrated, but we're hoping with the new Super Seed that's coming out and various other things, including the watch we spoke about today with the faceted sapphire glass on it, they should be really knocking it out of the park, and people are going to stand up, pay attention to what they're doing. Dave, any others?
I'd agree with you. I think it depends how you want to categorise it, but yeah, I think there's lots of brands, Orage being one, and there's a few others that are, smaller brands that you've either never heard of or whatever that are doing great things that are definitely underrated. If we want to look in, I guess, the bigger sphere, the more well-known brands from the big houses, Glasuta Original.
Oh, okay, right.
In this watch group, definitely underrated. Do a cool watch. A lot of the German brands, frankly, folk who know, but brands like I think Zinn do some cool stuff.
Damasco.
And Damasco, yeah, some great product there as well. I think Nomos, the style is a mess, but the technology behind what they're doing is really, really cool. I see someone's put Chopard and JLC. Chopard, yeah, I agree with to a
LUC
certain extent.
Probably.
LUC, they've got some cool watches. The Alpine Eagles is a cracking watch. There's no two ways about it. JLC, I don't know whether I'd say underrated. JLC are just very different. They just kind of sit and cruise along and do their own thing, but they're not trying to be anything to anybody. They know they're good and they just carry on being good, to be frankly honest.
I asked them about this when I was overseeing them a couple of years ago, because when I got into the hobby five and a bit years ago, I was watching lots of Tim Mosso videos, and he was big on JLC, the great collection, including the Zamvox series. And when I went over, I spoke to one of the guys there, one of the high-up dudes, and I said, why don't you do cool stuff anymore? And his reply was, we're known as the watchmaker's watchmaker, so we're going deep on the heritage and the history because that's what people seem to like. But their releases since then, their Polaris and all the rest of it, they seem to do stuff down here that's super boring and middle of the road, and then whoomph, they do gyro tourbillons and stuff at the other end. There doesn't seem to be that middle part where there's the variation and things people can buy, and it's a real shame.
Okay, tell me other brands.
Go on, sorry.
I'll give you one more. And in terms of the high end, arguably one of the most underrated is Minerva. Minerva will give pretty much everybody, right up to the Langers of this world, a proper kicking when it comes to it. That's they do traditional high artisan, high horology really, really bloody well, and they don't get the kind of respect that they are due. People who know, but they don't get the respect that they're due.
I've not heard of them.
Okay, I've got one final question before we wrap this up, guys. I could go on all night, but I appreciate everybody is busy. You know what I mean? It's great.
Dave's got nothing to do.
Really, thank you so much.
I've tanned most of a bottle of wine.
He's built a wall.
So good having you guys.
So we're done.
I'd just like to know, is there any particular brand that you haven't had on your show or had in your hands that you are that you want to get? Obviously, don't let in trade secrets if you're already in negotiations. But is there anything you can think of you want to go for just to get in your hands to borrow or get them on the show to have a chat with? Anything you can think of? Anybody? Any mate? You seem to have everybody in the 350 something. Everyone's everyone.
We're really spoiled, and the fact that we've managed to go to things like Dubai Watch Week last year and mingle with the best of the best of the best. The guy that runs our work, the guy that runs MB&F, the guy that runs Jacob & Co., all these top tier manufacturers, creators, designers and whatnot. I don't know, I can't think of anything because we've kind of been able to see, try on and speak with the best of the best. I can't think of anyone at all.
I think for me, a couple. I would like to get Ludwig Ballevard on because he is just a genuinely interesting individual doing some, really, really interesting stuff. I think the key is it's the people that you don't know, you've never heard of, you don't even know they exist. You hear about the headliners at companies, the CEO or the personalities, and some of them are interesting and some, frankly, are really boring, to be brutally honest. But there's lots of people within these companies that are absolute superstars at what they do that don't get any limelight at all. You don't even know they work for these companies or brands. And they're the ones sometimes when you get a hold of them, they can just be so insightful and actually just give you that real kind of gritty, truthful information, because the people at the top, some are pretty easygoing, pretty open, will tell you how it is and don't toe a line, so to speak. But then there's also a lot of them that just because of the world as they live in, the corporate world, are very down the line, and that's how it is. That's why I think a lot of the guys that work for the independents, it's their business, and it's like, if I'm saying that, I'm saying it. Happy days. A lot of the bigger companies, they are much more conservative in what they will or won't say. But sometimes when you get someone behind the kind of scenes, that you get a lot more to it. So the independent guys are always the ones that you have the most fun with. I think Xavier was brilliant fun though.
He was good. That's from Chapek.
He was great.
He was a good laugh, and there was a bit of synergy there because he's a funny Frenchman and we pretend we're funny Scotsmen, and they're not that far away. They were great. But you said that, Dave, but some of the big CEOs, some of the big wigs that we get on, like Chris Granger from IWC, absolutely amazing episode with him. And he started as a boutique architect and has just meteoric rise to stardom. Other people at the top, Jean-Claude Biver, the top of the watch industry, Roger Smith, top of his game. We've had them on and they've been brilliant as well. We've not had any guests on where at the start, at the midpoint, or even editing, have I thought, oh my god, this is a dud, we've got the wrong person. Everybody we've had on right the way through, even the worst sounding episodes, and there was a comment you can bring back up in a second, even Lewis from Anne Ordain, where he had the worst audio ever for a guy that ran a high definition audio company. It was insane. No, I can hear you. Take the ball gag out, Lewis. But it's people like that. It's the stories, it's the way they tell. It doesn't matter how good or bad the audio quality is. It's the people we speak to, and we always manage to get the best out of them. And I think there's a few people we've had on the Gentas for episode 1 with them, where they came on and they didn't really know what to expect, so they're kind of guarded. They're watching their P's and Q's, but then we have them on for the second episode, and it's just a different ball game. It's relaxed. They're kicking back. They're going with the flow. So yeah, I can't think of any other ones. There was a comment there that just popped up. I think it was somebody called Lola. Can you bring that one back up and I'll comment on that one?
Of course we
I'll
can.
bring it up.
Yeah,
There we go. There we go.
yeah,
You have the
you got it.
technology.
You're on it. Yeah.
Right, there we go. From It's Just Lola. Love the podcast. Thank you very much. I found them a few months ago, the William Wood episode. I'm gradually working my way back to episode 1. Well, do not do that, okay? So
Don't do
stop
it.
around about
Don't.
episode 40.
Yeah.
That's the limit point, because we some people record a podcast and then they listen to it and go, oh, and then they re-record it and re-record it. The first episode I ever did, we released, and it is shonky and shocking. I'll actually go and delete it before she manages to get her way back.
And now everyone's going to look out for episode 1.
Everyone's going to
I'm
look at you're going to have.
I'm
You're going to
literally
have
deleting
hits
them
back,
just
you're gonna have
now.
lots of hits
Get
on
it,
that
so many
one.
Do
hits
not
on
do
that,
that.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
But William Wood, there you go. There's another brand that I wouldn't say they're underrated, but they're doing great things.
100%.
We've had quite a few episodes with them. We actually did a video. I did a video with them about the motorcycle that was customised by Saltair for the firefighter charity here in the UK, and I had not been to sleep for 36 hours when I recorded that video, and it actually stood up pretty well. So William Wood, great brand. Johnny and Marie, fantastic people.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I see someone's asked about what are our thoughts on Grossman and Gronfeld.
Yeah, I was just bring that up, Dave. Thank you. Yes.
Both amazing. I think you always have to try and separate your personal aesthetic from certain things. There's lots of watches out there that are just, excellent, but they're not necessarily your aesthetic. They might not be what you wear. You might not like the look of it, but that doesn't take anything away from its kind of engineering excellence or its kind of horological nuts, so to speak. Grossman is, a fantastic business who are doing some, really interesting, high-end work there. And, we've had Robin on the show before, who kind of looks after the brand, I guess, in the UK. And, we've had, the brand themselves on, and we've had, chats about them, and they've got some interesting stuff in terms of what they do. And Gronefeld, frankly, is one of those reserved nutter geniuses out there, and he does some just absolutely outstanding work.
Prefer Blofeld, but the Grossman stuff's really good. When we spoke to Christine Hooter and obviously Robin as well in the past, some of the technologies that they've used, like one of the demo watches had Christine Hooter's human hair inside. They use wood in certain parts of the mechanisms because it's a naturally self-lubricating material. Their Hamatic hammer design instead of the automatic rotor. There was one called the Twist that was a female designed watch, because when someone's got long nails like Dave, it's hard to wind the crown properly. So you would just take the top strap and rotate the strap, and that would wind. I mean, it's stuff when you say it out loud, it sounds so normal and natural, and why didn't they think of this? But the best ideas sometimes are like that, and with Moritz Grossman, they've just got great ideas all the time. And some of the new releases they brought out, I think there was a kind of back to front thing they did in Dubai, where you could see the mechanism. Just fantastic. There's another brand that doesn't get enough attention, where some other people do.
Excellent. Right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. As I know,
Great,
no problem at all.
Pleasure.
Anyone late to the show,
Thanks
just
for
let you
having
know,
us.
these guys do not do YouTube because of all the shit and drama that goes on and continues to go on, which, as you know, I avoid. And
listen, I don't owe Nico $9,000, okay?
11.
Yeah.
No,
11
he owes me
euros.
25.
Yeah. He doesn't owe Nico $9,000. He's not shagging Blondie. I can't remember what other drama's going on about it.
What's that one? I've not heard this one.
O'Sheen.
This is
He's going out with some girl called Blondie who was doing the YouTube rounds on people's streams, and she was on Tim's for ages, and then she suddenly found O'Sheen, and then next minute she was on a plane over to Italy to comfort him with all the drama that was going on the last few weeks, allegedly. So
didn't hear anything about that, thankfully.
Yeah, right.
Thankfully, that by
Count yourself
that
lucky,
bypass
yeah.
is like,
Count yourself.
Yeah,
lucky.
keep away from that. So this is
that was
what
like the Stonehenge bypass. You didn't miss much.
this is what we do here. So this is the reason why these guys have come onto my channel, because we talk about watches. So thank you. So thank you, Ricky.
No problem at all, buddy.
And thank you, Dave.
Very welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks
Sam, for
us.
setting all this up. It's brilliant. And thank you, Night Wristwatchman, for being the right hand man as always. So
No
just
problem.
play the outro. Won't be a second. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you all on Tuesday night for another show. Thank you.